Hello everybody, Anna Sabranwitz here. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. Listen, today's session is going to be about interactive storytelling and the art of reflection. And the reason I'm talking about this is because one of the things that's very important in any learning experience is that people actually reflect on what they're doing, why they're doing it, and then try to think about reasons about why those things are happening. And hopefully it leads them down a path that actually helps them learn more and gets them curious about things, because curiosity is what we want, right? We don't want apathy. We don't want people to be complacent. We want them to be curious, excited, engaged, all those things, right? So how do we do that? So that's what we're going to get into today. And of course, we're going to talk about interactive storytelling, scenarios, and the learning journey, because this 2 weeks, really what I'm going to do is just really dig into those different mediums, because there's a way to use them strategically, a way to use them that delivers the most value, and also in a way that actually complements where the learner's at in their journey, so that it has the most, it provides the most momentum for them, right? That's the big deal. But in the meantime, let me just make sure I'm bringing everybody up. And it's so crazy because yesterday I ran a session and obviously people showed up, but the thing was people were giving me comments and I didn't see any of them. So that was totally weird. But if you're here, say hi. There's a bit of a lag, of course, but I love hearing from you, and let me know if you're crafting your own scenarios or interactive stories at your organization. And if you have any questions, right, as I'm talking about this magical stuff. All right, so I got to start with a story because I think this is really appropriate, because I just read something from somebody else today in one of our groups. And years ago, when I was just a fledgling instructional designer, I was working at this organization, and I was really trying to, I was not only part of the instructional design team, I was also part of the training team, which was really cool because you get way more contact with your end user, right? And I was really excited about that space. And one of the things that I was really interested in was how the physical space, how the environment, whether it's training or whether it's even in the real world, as far as workplace, how that affected people's learning, how it affected the impact of the training we were doing in the classroom versus on the job application. So I really loved all that stuff, and I still do. And one day we had this meeting, and I was talking about how maybe if we incorporated some natural light bulbs into our training environment, which was actually a room with no windows, or it was like dark. Or something to that effect, some kind of environmental change, or maybe making the colors of the walls a little more conducive to learning, because colors do affect our learning and things like that, right? And my boss at that time said to me, she said, "What have you been smoking?" And I'm sure she was in a place at that point where she wasn't ready for that kind of info, or something was happening in her day, whatever it was. But one of the things that did to me was it kind of shut me down as far as wanting to pitch my own ideas. And I realized from that moment on is that if I really wanted to get good at this stuff, if I really wanted to push forward, and if I really wanted to craft myself as a professional, I will have to start relying on myself to do my things. Sometimes you'll find people who will support you, and I've had those people along the way too. Of course I have. But if you're not surrounded by people who support that journey, don't use it as an excuse not to push yourself and craft and hone your own skills, and go out and get your own books, go out and get your own training, go out and get your own, like you're here, like you're showing up here, right? This is probably for you. This isn't because somebody told you to be here. It's because you decided to spend your time with me learning how to do something that's impactful and beneficial, right? So I appreciate you showing up. Because I've been there, and it's good that it's for you. Anyways, and sorry, my setup's a little different today because I'm changing things around in my office, and I'm kind of jammed into the corner right now, so it's a little bit up close and personal, but don't worry, it's still going to be awesome about the interactive storytelling. And thanks so much for being here. So, Alan, thanks for joining. That's awesome. All right, you guys. So first, let's talk about this interactive storytelling. And I have a fancy pointer today. It's called a pink pen. This way. See, I gotta adjust everything because I'm in a different location. All right. So when you're crafting, whether it's a scenario or simulation or it's an interactive story, you have to first understand what your audience, where your learner is in that learning journey. All right. So the goal is always to get somebody from a cold, unaware state, a state where they're like, and this doesn't mean that when there's somebody's in a cold state or unaware state, all we're saying is that they're not aware that there's a better way. Their life right now is probably okay, right? They're making quotas, they're delivering on project timelines, maybe they're, but maybe they're not as efficient, maybe their relationships are okay. And so what you're doing is you're trying to figure out, are they here? Are they kind of unaware? Or are they here where they're like, oh man, I know I have some serious gaps in my personal communications, or I know that I'm totally flopping when it comes to like efficiency, putting out these reports that I have to do, right? So you got to figure out where they're at. Now, I dare say there's a lot of training that's being put out there without consideration for the fact that a lot of people don't even see its value yet. And we try and jam that value into the what's in it for me statement up here when we're designing the training for people up here. That's not going to cut it because they actually have to go there and actually see it and see its value. And that's not going to work. You have to connect with them emotionally first, because we put a lot of rational statements in the what's in it for me, right? It's like, by the end of this module, you're going to be a rock star at this. Well, maybe that's not how that connects to me. I really don't care about knowing all these things because my life is great. I'm perfect, right? And to be honest with you, a lot of people are fine being here because we don't like discomfort. We don't like being unaware. We don't like feeling like there's gaps in our knowledge. We don't like feeling like we don't understand the world or it doesn't make sense. None of those things are comfortable. And so your brain will always be seeking out things in your environment that make it look like everything is honky-dory, because you need that. You need that stability. You need the world to make sense in the way you need it to make sense, right? It's super important. So most people are here. Their world makes sense already. So why are you disturbing them with this training, right? So that's where an interactive story comes in. It doesn't go later. You don't have to do stories all the way through all the training. It's not actually necessary, because if you do an interactive story, which is what we'll get into in a little bit, if you do this in the right way, the person will become emotionally engaged in that journey, and then they'll seek out resources. And this has nothing to do with learning curves. This has nothing to do with memory. This has nothing to do with Kirkpatrick's level. Nothing. At this very level, all we're trying to do with our interactive story is awaken somebody who is cold and unaware. Unawareness is a terrible thing. If they're not aware, it's awareness, as they say that. Awareness is the first step to making a change in your life, right? If you're not aware, all of this could exist. All of Wikipedia, all of YouTube, all of lynda.com, all of LinkedInLearning.com could exist, and the person would never even look, not once, because their life is here and they're unaware. So what we're trying to do is actually get them to become engaged in that journey, feel like there's something out there for them, and then hopefully drive them to some really useful training resources that get them the practice and the helping them make the decisions that will help them be more successful in their lives. Is that making sense? I hope that's making sense. If you guys, let me know. All right. So, and by the way, if you post your comments, I do see them now. So that's fantastic. So keep doing it. All right. So like I said, the first step is you got to become aware of where your learner's at, right? Have they had these epiphany moments? And that's what's actually really huge. So when I was talking about how, when I used to be a trainer, instructional designer, and there was this I was really interested in that environment and how it affects learning and how it affects basically the change that you can affect, and how all those things kind of come together to create a really good experience for somebody to move them towards this ideal, right? So, like I said, I've always been interested in that. And a couple of years ago, what became really apparent is that obviously there's apps that are out there in the world that are very addictive, right? Like if you think about Instagram, very simple, very addictive, but also what it does is we haven't experienced those apps before, but then all of a sudden they become a habit, right? And how do you do that? So one of the guys who actually was very influential in crafting that and is a behavioral, he studies this kind of stuff and actually helps people craft very good apps, is BJ Fogg. And BJ Fogg had this really awesome statement. And he said that the only way you can get people to move or to change their behavior, which is what we're all working towards, right? Behavior change, is three things, right? One of the things is when somebody has an aha moment, like they have a light bulb moment that clicks in their mind and are like, oh shit, oh my God, yeah, okay, cool, right? And then those epiphany moments are not very, like they can be orchestrated, but they're not very frequent, right? Sometimes an epiphany moment is somebody like, my neighbor smokes for 40 years and then he has open heart, lung and heart surgery because he's that sick. They sew him up and his epiphany is, I am never gonna smoke again and I'm really gonna start taking care of myself. You should see him now. The guy's a rock star. 77, just passed his birthday. You wouldn't tell. But he had to have that epiphany, which is terrible because it's really excessive. We can't give everybody those kinds of situations. So the other two are changing your environment. That'll help you change your behavior change. And the other one is tiny, tiny habits, which is something like those addictive apps, right? But when you think about it, when you're crafting, you're designing e-learning, most times, most of us, the only thing we don't have control over the behavior, or not the behavior, the environment that somebody's in. We can't optimize it to be even better, right? Rarely do we have that opportunity. Having some sort of a tiny habit influencing those things for themselves, that's totally personal, right? We really have no influence over that. But what can we do, right, to affect behavior change? Guess what, guys? We can give people epiphanies, aha moments, help them have those kinds of, what? There is a different way of looking at this? What? I could do this? What? You can give them that moment. You can give them that aha with an interactive story. And that's what's crazy. All right. Hi, Di. Great to have you here. So, isn't that fun? Like, seriously, I am so excited about being in this space because you can do something amazing for people. All right. So let's really talk about how because I started this off with, there's reflection. And we want people to reflect on what's happening so that they can say, I wonder if I'm doing that in my life, or I wonder if that would work for me if I did that, right? So that's huge. And that's why I really wanted to talk about interactive stories from the first versus third person perspective, because there's a reason why when you're moving people from this cold, unaware state, you gotta handle it gently. There's a reason why you'd use the third person perspective versus the first person perspective. So let me get into this. So a first person would be kind of like if you've ever played a game like Halo, let's say, which is you get a choice to be kind of in the body. You're in the body of the person doing the actions, right? It's kind of like if you did a customer interaction simulation, you would actually be the person talking to the customer, right? Now, in a third person is when you're observing somebody else do something. So let's talk about that a little bit differently. So, and this is the weirdest looking eye you ever did see that, but that's an eye. All right. So let me just walk through this quickly. All right. So All right, sorry, I just got distracted by that googly eye. All right, so in third person stories, which is how most stories are designed, right? You're observing a character go through their daily actions and decisions. You're helping them make the decisions, but you're observing, right? What can we do when we observe? We can judge, right? We can reflect through that observation. We can say, look what they're doing. Those idiots, look at them. It's like watching somebody else drive and you're like, oh my God, they suck. They're so terrible at that. Oh, look at them. They don't even put their flicker on, blah, 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 right? And there's all this stuff happening. And it's easy for you to judge because whenever you make a mistake, right, you have all of your rationalizations behind it. So it's okay that you did it. When somebody else does, you're judging straight up. You're judging the surface stuff, right? But what's amazing with an interactive story is that you can actually, through that reflection and observation, have somebody almost get lost in that story. No, not almost. Get lost in the story. And in effect, get into this trance. It's like when you're reading a good book or when you're in a movie, you lose time, right? Because you're in it, you're immersed. And that immersion makes you feel like you're part of that story. It makes you also more susceptible to messages because you're in a trance. Like, I know you might not believe me, but every time you watch a movie, you're in a trance, right? A good one, anyways. And so what happens is when you're in that trance, you're more susceptible to being influenced. And let's not kid ourselves. We're trying to influence people. This is all about persuasion, right? My idea is I have this awesome training program for you guys, and I know that 95% of you are totally in the cold unaware zone and you're not meeting your sales quotas, and I know you could do better if you just improved your relationships with your customer. If you did this, I'm trying to persuade you that this is a better way. All of learning is just persuasion, right? Let's not kid ourselves. So persuasion, influence. So what happens is because I'm observing this and I'm kind of in a trance with the story, making decisions on behalf of somebody else, guess what happens? I'm more open to that, becoming aware that something's amiss, but it is that trance that we're trying to get people into. Now here's the challenge, right? This is what's kind of challenging. When you do a first person experience, which is when I am in that, I'm talking directly to the customer as me, when I'm doing things as pretending to be as me. When I get into any interactive story, any kind of experience, what do I bring to the table? I bring things like my beliefs. I bring things like my experience. I bring things like bias. I bring things like my character, right? Basically, we call it the ego, right? It follows us around, this friendly friend, our ego. And if I craft an interactive story for you, and this never goes away, right? This is always there. My beliefs are always there. My experience is always there. My bias is always there. My character is always there. Whoever says you're bias free, you're lying. You always have preferences. Bias is a preference, right? We all have preferences. And so what happens is, if for some reason somebody is unaware and then you attack them, basically you attack their ego by saying, this is you, you're making this mistake, and if you choose, you're gonna suck, and if you choose, you're gonna win. What's hard about that is they're never gonna get lost and be open to influence and get into that trance, because every time you say something about them doing something, you're attacking the ego, and that gets you out of the trance and gets you, it doesn't help you, that suspension of disbelief that we talk about when you get into a movie and you're like, oh yeah, this is what's happening. I'm living through this character's eyes. That doesn't happen. Because you constantly, every time there's a decision that you're making in your interactive story that somehow affects your ego and picks on you personally, it jars you out of the story again, and you start evaluating it again instead of actually going, yeah, that's Jim's story. Look at what Jim's doing. Oh my God. Well, that didn't go well. Whoops. Jim, what are you doing? Right? Instead of you going, it's you, you suck. That's not going to happen. You're not going to get that influence. You're not going to get that emotional buy-in, because we only get this if we feel something for some other character first. You can't do it for yourself in these interactive stories. And it's kind of weird. I hope that made sense. But the thing is, you can't, when you're trying to engage somebody from this cold, unaware place, you can't move them there if you're attacking their ego here. And you do that when you go with first person. Now, there's nothing wrong, and we're going to talk about that later in later sessions, about doing that more personal experience, about personal mastery later on with scenarios and simulations. But right here, it's not going to work, because you got to influence them. You got to get their buy-in to even jump onto this next step, right? How do you do that? You make the person experience the story from a third person perspective. They're helping somebody else make decisions, but it's not them. So now, one last piece about interactive storytelling, and this is what's really important. I've talked about this, and if you go through my live streams or other videos on my YouTube channel, you'll see I talk about story a lot, and it's simple. It really is beginning, middle, and end. But there's obviously elements that make it better, right? That make it powerful. And when I talked about aha moments, when I talked about those epiphanies, one of the things you're doing with your interactive stories, right, is you're selling people on a future that could be theirs, right? It's not theirs, it's the characters, but they're like, oh, maybe that could be me, or that really wasn't for me, but I really got something out of that. I wonder if I'm doing that, or I wonder if I tried this, if this would work for me. Like, you're trying to get them to buy into this vision of the future, and you'd want to do that in the least aggressive way on their ego as possible, right? We like helping other people. We like judging other people. We like reflecting on other people's actions. Why do they do that? I wonder, right? That's easy. So it's not in that state of cold unawareness. You don't want to pick on them because they don't know yet. Their life is okay. So you don't pick on them. So one of the things you want to do with your story and the character in your story, right? Because what you're doing is you're basically linking a bunch of really awesome contextual situations, scenarios, and then wrapping these up in a really compelling story. And that story needs to have the character transform. If the transformation doesn't happen, or if it's not explicit enough, then we're not going to feel this major satisfaction when we get to the end that life is better because the choices that we've made. We have to do that. So if you want to, one of the best places to get this inspiration is to watch awesome movies. My favorite place, Pixar. But some of the best stories in the world are examples of this. Of course, if we go to Star Wars, this is the crazy epic tale of transformation. Farm dude living in like a weird dune thing in the ground. At the end, he saves the universe, he saved the universe. He gets a medal from a princess. Guy on a farm saves the universe, right? That's crazy. I mean, we're not gonna, but if you want to go back to like work stuff, you could say, guy who's just making quotas to guy who gets to win the trophy and get to go on a wicked holiday with his, visit back his relatives back in the UK with his whole family to retrace their roots and visit the old castle, whatever, right? Something awesome. And also just everybody loves him, right? Here, okay, mundane life, what is that? Here, yeah, damn it, look at what could happen. This is the best. So we got to sell that. It does not mean dragons, leprechauns, pirates. It does not mean any themes at all. this is contextual. This is a real story. Like imagine the another movie that was super awesome for this was The Pursuit of Happiness, right? In the beginning, like it wasn't at the end he owned like the city. At the end, he was like in the beginning, he was obviously struggling to even make rent. In the end, he gets his dream job and he has a wonderful relationship with his son. That's super contextual. We didn't need magic in there. Real life is the best, right? Real life is the best. So that was a great story, by the way. You should check that out. The Pursuit of Happiness. And based on a true story even, and that's the best, even better, right? But one of the things I just wanted to mention quickly is that, and this makes for really good stories, and you'll find that really good stories do this. They call it the hero's two journeys, right? The hero, they want to solve a problem for themselves, right? Something happens in their life and they're like, oh man, this sucks. I got to fix this, right? And they want to fix it, and they want to fix it in the way that they think is the best way to fix it, right? But along the way, they also learn something. They learn what they actually need, the skill that they were missing that they didn't even know they were missing, right? So for a lot of people, they're like, I want to get to be the #1 salesperson. That's what I want. I want the sales trophy. And that's why they get on this journey, because they're like, I hate being the last guy on the leaderboard all the time. But what they really need is maybe build up their interpersonal skills or their confidence when they're pitching, whatever that is, right? So it's kind of like what they want is what they want when they're here, right? Because that's all they know. And then through this journey, they actually develop skills that they actually need. So it's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome, pretty sneaky too, right? So if you enjoyed this, there'll be more. I'll be talking about this all week. So make sure you like the video, and next time I go live, you'll be notified. It'll be around the same time tomorrow. The other thing is, if you want to learn about interactive stories, get some examples, actually see how I built my first one, Broken Coworker, back in 2011, then go to elearningsecrets.com. There I have a case study that you guys can check out, and it shows you all kinds of different ways that you can use this to influence and get people excited about the learning journey, right? Because that's a huge hurdle. And if you have questions about anything that I talked about today, please post it in the comments. I actually get to see it. Hi, Evangelina. And one of the things that I do is I go back and I check them out, and if I can incorporate your question into my live, then I usually do. Yeah, I hope this was useful to you. I really appreciate your sticking around, because that means you enjoy this, and also that you're investing your time with me. And I know there's lots of other things you could be doing and looking at right now. So I really appreciate you being here, and hopefully taking your interactive storytelling skills to the next level. All right. So you guys take care. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Woo! Bye.